Can we just point out how much people in WoW overreact to stuff? Evokers first come out and they're like, oh my god, 4 Evokers, 1 in every party because of Zephyr. And then Arms Warriors come out and they're like, wait, Skull Banner, you're only gonna ever play Arms. Hello, Mr. Dan.
Yo, what's up?
Hello. Wait, is it super late for you?
Nah, not that late.
Okay. It's definitely nice when I'm talking to you people. Critcake said he would be here as well, so maybe he'll join whenever. But either way,
he's streaming at the moment, so he should be here.
Let me see. He might be in the middle of a key or something.
Hello. Sorry, I'm on D&D.
Oh no, you're good. Yeah, I didn't. Yeah, you're good. Okay, so I meant there was almost 3 times I called you guys, so we'll just focus on DPS for today. Only the DPS specs.
Sure.
So many things have changed philosophically, been different. We haven't talked even since they moved like Die by the Sword out of the class tree. Like literally, we have not talked since the very, or even had like a brief touch up since they've made. I think maybe, are you guys second behind Hunters in like overall changes? I think so. Like you're all
something like that.
Yeah,
We're quite high when it comes to like communication from the devs as well.
Has that been good?
Yeah, I've loved it. I mean, it's just been nice to know that there's stuff coming rather than be left in the dark, for sure.
Okay, and then so I'm looking now at all these warrior changes, and there's no reason for me. What I like to do actually, like right when changes come out, depending on if people are around, is I'll just like talk about each individual one and have people kind of explain what those mean, if they matter. With warriors, so many of them are just small changes that are not understood unless you look at the overall significance of the changes. So I guess we can kind of just touch on some highlights since we last talked, and the problems that existed then, and like kind of how they went about changing that. So we talked about it in the arms tree. The big issue at the bottom of the thing, blunt instruments and sharpened blades. For the longest time, they wanted to be really lore-wise based on your weapons. In this last change, or in the last, I think it was actually this week, they made it so this is now just a gameplay choice and has nothing to do with your weapons.
Yeah, I'm very, very happy with this change. Like, I've been saying it over and over. Like, there was already a choice node there, so there was, you didn't need to add weapons to the equation.
They also simultaneously just gutted sharpened blades. I don't think it's...
Oh, did they actually nerf it?
That good anymore. Yeah, it's 50% less.
Oh, I see, yeah.
So I don't even think that's particularly good anymore. And Test of Might is just bad anyway. So I don't think you play blunt. And I now think it's at a point where you can just not take that at all, even though they made the change that would have made it easier to take.
Oh, that's interesting. Is that a tuning thing with Test of Might? It's just not enough, or not enough rage damage?
Yeah. The strength needs to be higher, because at the moment there's no massive rage issues outside of Execute, I don't think. But it requires still using a lot of overpowers, and that's just a global completely wasted on what could be rage spend.
Yeah, okay. So it's something along the lines of your rage is at a point right now where overpower isn't really... Okay, so they can probably look at that. I imagine, again, they really haven't gotten into... A lot of the stuff of our talks has been talking about theory and how the thing could be. A lot of the stuff is going to have to change based on where it is in the tree. However, it is possible with Test of Might being middle tier of this tree that its power level is not what it was at the end of BFA. That could be intentional for sure.
Yeah, I feel like if it was going to be BFA levels, you'd be looking at sort of capstone type stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, and then... Okay, so they changed that, and both of them seem kind of uninteresting, which is maybe another thing to look at. Another big change, they identified that Signet was a problem pretty early, and they've kind of put in their initial fixes for that. I'm not sure if they've done their final ones. I know 2 changes ago they did the initial changes to it, and then they said, like, we're still looking to make sure that this makes sense for both specs. They put it in the spec trees, right? Is that where it is, or is it in the class tree somewhere?
Bottom left, right?
Are in the class tree in the bottom left.
Yeah, that's it.
So, like, you go and grab Avatar, and then you just pick which version of... They basically broke down Signet into different versions.
Yeah, no more RNG.
What do you guys think about that?
I think it's a really, really great change. Like, you can choose AoE or single target, basically, with it. And there's no more randomness. So, like, you go in and pop your cooldowns, and then you proc your Blade Storm on single target. You're always sad, but at least now you have control over it.
Yeah, but I remember people were talking about that and then canceling it, and then a lot of times you didn't want the Blade Storm. But then when I brought up the thing of like, oh, we'll just remove Blade Storm, it was like, there's this problem, and people were just like, we just want something new or a redesign. But you guys are saying you guys are happy with this as a choice, and you feel like realistically you could be... Go ahead.
I'd have been down with them removing Bladestorm. My initial thought would be to just keep Signet as it was, but just replace Bladestorm with Ravager for every spec. But this is arguably better because it just removes any type of RNG, like whatsoever. You actually have the choice now between, do I pad or do I kill the boss?
Okay. They also did something new for Ural's tree, which I actually think, at least fundamentally, could solve some problems. They have Ural's tree in the class tree different based on what spec you're playing. I don't know if any other spec has actually achieved this yet, but it's like tech that could maybe make a lot of other class trees better by just actually changing it instead of keeping it the same. There's multiple scenarios of just buttons being in completely different spots or doing different things based on changing your tree. I wonder if that, based on like a pure DPS player, ignoring prot entirely, do you guys feel like those are changes that actually help your all's tree build out for different specs?
I definitely think so. And I think for Fury especially, you only need to choose that one weapon node now. Because previously you had to pick both 200 spec and dual wield spec, which limited your options. But now that 200 spec there becomes dual wield spec when you're Fury.
Wait, I'm so confused. Okay, so I actually haven't looked at this tree in a while. The last time I looked at this, even like a week or two ago, there was still the two-handed and one-handed nodes on the side, but they were just made to be 1 point. Where are these now? Is it
consolidated into that one two-handed weapon spec? That just changes based on what spec you are.
Oh, okay.
So one prot that becomes one-handed.
Dual wield for Fury, two-handed for arms.
And for prot, it is one-handed and leech like the other thing. Okay, so that's just part of the tech that they did. That is definitely very nice.
Yeah.
What else do they have here? I mean, just overall, the pathing looks completely and totally different. I don't know if it's different at the top, but like at least in the middle, it looks like totally fleshed out. They made War Machine a different thing for each spec. Prot, it's like 50 or something. Arms 10, Fury a little bit more, right? Yeah, 20. Are there still some of those nodes that just work on Slam and Shield Slam and not anything Fury related?
Yes. Crushing Force at the top of the second tier in the middle on the left. It's only Slam related, but there is a talent in the Fury tree, which is specifically, I'm imagining, intended to be for single-minded Fury, which is still a problem. Where it allows you to use Slam as a filler. So technically there's use there, but it makes that part of the tree a little bit awkward to path down for Fury. And you want to path down there because Frothing Berserker is still there just below it, and it's still insanely strong. So that's the only, other than single-minded Fury, it's the only real issue that I have with this tree, at least from Fury's side. It's just, I don't know, everything there is situational. You've got Wrecking Throw and Shattering Throw on the left, both of which are entirely situational. Crushing Force in the middle, which is a dead talent unless you're playing Storm of Swords at the bottom left for Fury. And then Concussive Blows, which is pointless unless you have something to interrupt. So what if there's a situation where you don't have any of that?
But you want Frothing Berserker and what it paths down to, and then you're just hard stuck. Yeah.
I mean, I guess it's probably fine because there seems to be quite a few situations in Raid where Blizzard like forcing melee out of melee range. And then I guess Wrecking Throw is kind of a decent dead choice, I guess, just because it gives you something else to throw at the boss on a short cooldown rather than just Heroic Throw. But that's such flimsy reasoning, and it doesn't feel good to go down that way for Fury.
You mentioned single-minded Fury. One thing Blizzard has done for a few specs in this game so far is they have allowed, actually, I think, just to give a couple of examples that I think is the single-minded Fury, same line of thinking. Destra Warlocks, they gave them Mayhem, which is just Havoc, but it just kind of happens randomly and you don't have to worry about playing about it. They stated the same thing as single-minded Fury. We don't want this to be optimal for the highest level of play, but it's something that's easier for people to get into. I think they did it recently with some other thing that was just released where they made it so like this is clearly the thing we want you to do that is like supposed to be easier. Oh, it's escaping me. They just posted about it yesterday. It was Feral, for the new Feral trees. They're not updated yet, I don't think, but they wanted like a version of Feral where you don't have to play Blood Talons. It just happens naturally. That's the first thing they showed that of this expansion was actually with Warriors, and they were like, yeah, it's weird that like part of your tree is single-minded Fury based, but it's something that isn't supposed to be optimal, and it's also farther down the tree. I guess, do you guys have any different opinions about the single-minded Fury situation that were different from before, or is it the same?
No, it's the same. I don't like that it exists because it's, at the end of the day, it could just be a transmog issue. They're doing it because people want to play with one-handed weapons, and that's it. Like, that doesn't need to be a talent of its own. There's no reason why that build can't work for Titan's Grip and then just loosen the restrictions on transmog. I'm pretty sure we mentioned this last time as well.
Yeah.
But I feel like by forcing it into one-handed weapons, there are 3 talents in there for a total of 4 talent points that are specifically for one-handed weapons. And to me, that's just 3 places of talents that you've taken away from what they want to be the most optimal way of playing. So you're effectively making your most optimal way of playing less. There's going to have slightly less diversity to it purely because you want to add the one-handed weapon fantasy when you could just loosen the restrictions on transmog instead. There's no reason that a build like this can't work for Titan's Grip. Like, none at all. Just, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. I don't think the SMF build is any easier to play either.
No.
Is it?
I wonder if it's for multi-speccing, right? Like what if a DK DPS player wants to play Blood, they just use their own holy weapon. If another tank, whatever, I guess it doesn't really work for Paladin, but you get what I'm saying. Like, maybe it's like a Prot Warriors want to like go DPS for a second and they only have one-handers for some reason, so they just play Fury.
Possibly. Yeah, possibly. It would open up the possibility of, I mean, even thinking about it the inverse way, a Prot Warrior wants to suddenly play Fury, but has been in Prot spec for the entire expansion and just has like 5,000 one-handers sitting in his bag. But
you can make it easier to do that without having it affect the tree for the entire class.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel about it. Like I say, it's just, it feels like something that could be solved a different way, and it feels like a waste there being so many talent points specifically for one-handed weapons. Like, a build like this could work. And as Crit said just before, their idea about this being a less intense spec for people that are newer or less comfortable with Fury and Titan's Grip and Raging Blow and all those charges and all the cooldowns, it still hasn't really hit the mark because Stormer Swords, which is on the left side second from the bottom, it's the intention is to make Whirlwind and Slam your fillers alongside Bloodthirst, but Slam is hasted on its cooldown and you're still GCD locked. It doesn't make it any easier to play. It's just you can see when something's about to come off cooldown, and that's what you press next. But it's still going to play just as fast.
So and it kind of makes it more confusing.
That's weird. Yeah, it does make it more confusing. It's like this own niche thing that if you tried to just play it, there's gonna be less people telling you how to play it because like who's doing this, So like you're like kind of off on your own. So basically, they haven't even accomplished what they set out to accomplish. It's not this easy thing.
I don't feel like it. Yeah. And it gets even worse in Execute because then you just add an extra button on top of that, and now it's playing exactly as fast as Titan's Grip does.
So on the same note of that, Fury in the class tree still starts with Berserker stance as its main thing. I know they've said that they kind of wanted to relook at the way stances work, so maybe there isn't too big of a thing, but just along the lines of single-minded Fury, do they think they've also kind of, or have they come close to figuring out what stances are supposed to be like, and is this still a problem for Fury?
We haven't heard any sign of them making any change. It is just Berserker stance that there's the issue with, and I even think that just a simple change like changing it to auto attack speed instead of auto attack damage is an even better fix than like an even simpler fix than maybe it's something they're thinking about. We don't know, but I think it would work because then it works for all. Well, maybe not all 3 specs, but it certainly works for Fury because auto attacks are still a big part of your damage with focusing chaos and having auto attacks hit all the time. Arms, if people really don't, or if people really feel like they're getting rage starved, or if it gets to Execute and they need that extra rage, then maybe Berserker stance would be an option. Swing faster, get more rage. But I don't know. They've not said anything specifically about what they want to do with it, at least. So we're all kind of in the dark. And they've mentioned this a couple of times over a few weeks.
Dude, I swear I like briefly read a Warrior thing where they were like, yeah, we understand that stances are kind of weird and we're not really sure what we want to do with it yet. Is that did I read that? Is that correct?
I am sure I read that recently as well.
Yeah, so basically, and then they changed these to say TBD work in progress, which I don't believe they necessarily were before. So I think Blizzard is like, at least they, as long as they understand and they have communicated, which I believe they have. I actually wish I could find it. Where they said that, like, yeah, we get that they're not, as long as they get that it doesn't really make sense, that's all you can really hope for, right? And then you just hope they come up with a solution.
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, it is just Berserker stance that's the problem. I think the other two are fine, but maybe they're just not happy with the stance system as a whole.
How do you guys feel about the capstone level of your class tree now? It's been changed. There's been like I remember they actually doubled down on Shockwave. They like saw the, DPS abilities at the bottom, and they're like, all right, this is what you're going to be going for, and we're just going to throw down Shockwave because we think everyone would just take it in basically any Mythic Plus or PvP scenario at all times. Do you guys still feel like this decision makes a lot of sense, or do you think that it's really hard to get Shockwave and you're kind of have a barrier to getting it?
It's still kind of impossible for DPS warriors to take Shockwave, and they've stated the reasons for it. But yeah, I don't think there's any way that any DPS warrior will lose out on Spear or Thunderous Roar so that they can get Shockwave.
I just feel like
They've
that's a
even-
miss.
They put another talent in, Sonic Boom, to the bottom right of Shockwave to try and make it look. They've effectively just polished a turd. Like, that is not gonna do anything.
It's also
they've
an
tried
extra
to make
point.
it more. Yeah, they've tried to make it more shiny with more damage, and it's still like, but it doesn't matter because Spear of Bastion, Elysian Might are going to do more. So who cares?
Yeah, and even if that was buffed to a point where it was kind of good, like imagine if you were in a situation where you want to use Shockwave for damage, but you had to save it for CC.
I'm going to use an example from the Shadow tree and the Demon Hunter tree to show kind of the inverse philosophy that the Warrior developer has used. So in the capstone level of the class tree of Demon Hunters, they have you pick the Hunt, and it's basically the only true damage throughput thing here. You could make an argument for a couple other things, but in reality, when they've built out this tree, they know you're slamming it down mid as Vengeance and Havoc 100% for the whole expansion. But then they give you 7 points to take the rest of which is utility. Shadow Priest at least, not necessarily Disc and Holy. They have different problems. But for Shadow, they actually give you a lot of choice because they allow you to run it down to the right, which is all your Shadow stuff. They have you get Mind Games in this, which is the only technical throughput that you're going to see really in the bottom of this tree outside of like one other ability. And then you're allowed to pick the rest as utility. The Warrior is the inverse, but the issue is having choice based on DPS spells and choice based on utility are not the same. There really is not a lot of choice with DPS spells. It's just kind of like what's better in what scenario. But utility actually changes frequently in many of the same even kinds of encounters in PvE. And I think they have the same idea, but the inverse doesn't work because the reality is if the utility thing is the odd man out, it's just going to get ignored for everything else that is throughput. And you saying that like the DPS specs can't select it, like kind of solidifies that.
It feels like when they were designing the tree, they got overexcited by putting in things like Avatar, Signet, Spear, thinking, oh yeah, people find these cool, a new Dragon Roar replacement with Thunderous Roar, and then they thought, oh, bugger me, lads, we've forgotten about Shockwave, and decided to slam that down there as well. It genuinely feels like an oversight, more than anything else.
I actually want to look at their reasoning for it here. They actually specifically posted about this, and if I Control F Shockwave, I bet it will show up. Here we go.
17 days for you.
There's been some feedback about wanting Shockwave to be lower down the tree and easier to obtain. We're quite confident that if we put it before the 20-point requirement, so before the capstone level, that every warrior, both DPS and protection, would have it. First of all, I don't even know if that's true. There's a lot of really good, at least, again, I don't know in this tree, but previously in the warrior tree, before they consolidated a lot of points, it was very competitive above 20 points. So I don't even know if at least previously that would be true. Maybe it would be now. And then basically that isn't our intention. AoE stun on a fairly short cooldown is a powerful ability. That is true. Then we feel there needs to be some opportunity cost to obtain this. It's just that, how many points are down here at the bottom? I don't know, something like 20 points down here, maybe 18. And you have to spend like you're just, and most of them are throughput. You're just going to spend 10 points on throughput 100% of the time. So I just
and I don't think their reasoning is I don't think makes sense either, because I'm sure I'm convinced I looked through the Warlock trees and they've got like Shadow Fury much higher up in the tree as well, and it's like, well, if they can have that there, then why can we not have Shockwave further up? It's a worse stun, even. It's a much worse stun.
Yeah, I mean, like, Chaos Nova is up here. Chaos Nova also, like, at least for Vengeance, has a lot more power than Shockwave because it's generating lesser soul fragments, right? Like, Other classes, yeah, you mentioned Shadow Fury being in the middle. Leg Sweep is baseline. They're basically the only class that I'm thinking top of my head that has to invest deep into the tree to get a stun, and it's also in the capstone, and it's not even a 1-pointer in the capstone. It's 2-pointer behind Stam.
It costs three talent points at the end of the tree. It's not good. Yeah.
Just needed to be a choice node with Stormbolt. That's all.
Yeah,
that's all we wanted.
Stormbolt is at the
that's
right
all we
there.
wanted.
Where is Stormbolt up here?
Down,
right here,
it's a
Pain and
choice
Gain.
node. Yeah. That's
Oh,
the
and then you
one.
can just go ahead and throw in Pain and Gain out the window too. So, yeah,
exactly.
Just put Shockwave up here, and I
And
guess they're saying
if they really want to, then they can move that. If their placement in the tree is a big deal to them, then maybe even move that down to where bitter immunity is and throw bitter immunity somewhere else and have it nerfed a little bit.
Yeah, bitter immunity is awesome. And that's also like
It
something
is.
I'm
It's
assuming nothing has changed there. It's still awesome. I guess one thing they really haven't changed their mind on, and this was a big point of criticism early on, is just the barrier of entry into your tree. Just the stat nodes. That if you want to go down these, you're just throwing 6 to 8 points in just flat stats that are not insanely interesting and seem kind of powerful. Like, dude, look at this 10% stam per node. Is that what that says?
It's 10% stam flat, and the avoidance scales 2 and 4%.
Oh, so the stam is only the 1 point.
Yeah, it's like the same as the crit one on the right. It's 1.5% crit chance, but the crit damage of the ability attached to it goes up 2.5 and 5%.
Okay.
They're a little bit more interesting now that they've added the second parts to them, but they're still just stats at the end of the day.
Yeah. When we looked at it last time, it was just the stats. It didn't have the second part.
Yeah. Okay. So they made it a bit more interesting. All right. So let's I think just a quick exercise we can do is Fury first and then Arms. Just kind of go down and do the tree again and see if a lot of the same issues happened as before, and then kind of quickly move on, not spend as much time because we kind of talked about everything so far, and then kind of you guys have been through this before, so you know what's up. And then afterwards, as we go through things and not choose things, we can still talk about some potential issues. So if you want to start with Fury, Dan, and then we will go down and do Arms later.
Yeah, sure. So we'll start with battle stance in the top left because that's still the stance that you'll take. Rallying Cry, and then just below that, probably Second Wind more often than not, but you've got the option there. I don't really like that choice, just as an aside. Second Wind is very hit and miss. You would rather have Impending Victory, but if you go Impending Victory, you then can't path down into Heroic Leap, and you would have to spend an extra point in Spell Reflect or that one anyway. So taking a point in either Inspiring Presence or Second Wind is purely to open up the rest of the tree, even though Second Wind is significantly worse.
Yeah, it's significantly worse. Inspiring Presence is definitely, with the nerf version of this conduit, is going to be very fight and situation dependent to where this will even have really any value.
100%.
And yeah, so okay. Choice node feels bad. We went down and grabbed Heroic Leap. You want Impending? Do you want Impending?
Not now, no. We'll come back to it,
Sure.
I think. Honed Reflexes as well in the bottom left of that section. And then over to the right side of the tree to take Siphoning Strikes just below Berserker Rage, and then War Machine and Furious Blows. From there, in terms of stuff that we actually 100% want, it's Bounding Stride below Heroic Leap, and then Double Time and Armored to the Teeth as offshoots of that.
Okay.
And almost from here, it's kind of free roam, but you do want to hit Massacre on the right side as well, so Pain and Gain is a natural option, then Massacre. And then from here, it's almost free roam, but the problem is you also want Frothing Berserker. So the left side, you need to take something, but as I said before, it's all
very
dog
situational,
for Fury.
and you're kind of not even considering Crushing Force because it's just an extra talent point.
Yeah,
right?
Like there's no need to consider it. It's completely dead. So Wrecking Throw, I guess, more often than not, and then Frothing Berserker. But now you do genuinely have 5 talent points to play around with.
And that's
I guess
good.
From a pure throughput point of view, you could go 2 points into Overwhelming Rage on the right, and then also Barbaric Training to the right of that. But there's such minimal gains. Like Overwhelming Rage is going to be purely situational for not overcapping so hard when you're in all of your cooldowns, and you'll see how many cooldowns we have in just a moment. For maybe banking a little bit of Rage for a target swap to be able to get 2 Rampages out pretty quick back to back, which does help a little bit of Fury's target swapping issues, especially if you don't prepare well for it. but they're so minimal for DPS gains. Like, you could easily sack both of these off and go pure utility after that.
I mean, it's not even like utility. You actually are getting like realistic, good survival buttons here for that.
Yeah.
Like Spell Reflect is a banger, especially the change to it now. It doesn't go away after it has reflected something, right? So it even after it reflects, it remains as a DR. So that's good. Even though that's pretty rare that would happen. Maybe Impending Victory. What are your other choices here? You have like defensive stance. You think Fury much less likely? I think you use this, but.
Yeah, I think its saving grace is that it's only a 3-second CD now, which is really nice. There's just a far less punishment, if you want to call it that, for using it. Even though the 6-second cooldown as it is on live is not exactly massive.
Where do you think you'd slam this most of the time in these last 3 points? What is the most attractive
these
things?
3 points? Honestly, these 3 points, I guess you would just go the pure throughput. With the overwhelming rage and barbaric training. Like I say, it is minimal, but you may as well take it because it helps a little bit with resources and the tiniest amount with whirlwind damage.
Okay. What is it looking like for just the capstone level here? What are the things you're prioritizing?
It's really straightforward. Reinforced plate, like everything on the left, reinforced plates, avatar, and then your choice of signet, which for raid most often will be Tormented Berserker. Dual wield spec, cruel strikes to the right of that, spear and Elysian might, and then 2 more points to place wherever you want. It can either be more survivability, more utility, or you can just slam them into quick thinking.
I feel like it might be. I feel like the most value points here, since you're not getting any other capstones, is unless you need bitter immunity, 1 point in endurance and 1 point in quick thinking seems way better than 2 in either.
Yeah, especially since the first part of the stats don't scale at all. You don't lose an awful lot. In fact, you gain the majority of the power.
Yeah,
of that point
that's so weird that the first point is so much better than the second point for either of these. But...
Yeah,
maybe it should be 510.
Yeah, man. I really would like that because that's like it's just such a no. There's no thinking here. You're just like 10% stam for 1 point. Almost any class in the game takes that. It's fucking insane. So yeah.
And it's not even like avoidance is particularly awful either, especially with the amount of avoidance and chance you get on top of that. We're going to be swimming in avoidance for free.
Okay, so and then are there any other choices? Is there a scenario where Thunderous Roar is good enough based on tuning? And if that's the case, what do you even consider dropping here?
I don't think so. I think Spear, especially Fury is really being hard pushed into 90-second cooldown windows, like even more so now that they changed the cooldown of Spear of Bastion to 90 seconds rather than 60 to also fit that mold. And yeah, you've now got Ravager in the bottom right of the Fury tree at 90 seconds with the new Gathering Storm choice node, which is going to be insane. I don't think there's a way that you come out of that, especially since obviously with Fury you have Wreck, 20% free crit, all the extra crit damage from Elysian Might. You're just going to be pumping damage in these 90-second windows. I don't think Thunderous Roar could really compete. The Fury tree itself doesn't have much that synergizes well with Thunderous Roar. A lot of it does depend on the placeholder talent as well, though, to be fair, under Thunderous.
Oh, yeah.
Because the one on the left is... The current one that's there I don't think is good enough. For Arms, I actually think it is quite good. But for Fury, nah. It all depends on that placeholder.
You're doing a Mythic Plus dungeon with a Frost Mage and an LA Shaman. So you have 1 cap totem, but you don't have a lot of group-wide stops. You feel like you need to take Shockwave. Let's just entertain the thought of what it looks like if you have to take Shockwave. It feels
you come
horrible.
out of Spear. You come out of Quick Thinking, out of Spear, into the second point in Endurance Training, and then 1 point in Shockwave with 1 point left over. I actually don't even think you take either of the capstone nodes beneath it. I don't think you need the reduced cooldown on Shockwave with Rumbling Earth. The extra
this
damage
literally
doesn't
makes
make
you
sense.
physically cringe to even think about this. Like that's part of the issue of Shockwave being here. Like this is a ridiculous thought that you would give up this for that. It's just not real.
It just doesn't fit the mold. I mean, and if they made it fit the mold by making it do damage, it then loses its stance as utility, because then you want to use it and slam it off cooldown for damage anyway, so what's the point?
Yeah, the Shockwave down here is a problem still. We can probably just leave it at that. All right, so this is let's just go before we give an overall view on the class, because we'll probably cover a lot of this stuff with Arms too. I think there's still a few issues like some of these points are not really being considered. We can come back and talk about that when we do it for Arms. Just do the Fury class tree and most, I don't know, just whatever build you want. We're not going to make multiple. Just
Sure. Just slamming everything in the top 3 rows. And then from
everything
there,
in these, okay.
oh yeah, everything in the top 3 rows. Yeah, absolutely. And then improve Bloodthirst on the left, and then we'll go War Paint in the middle, and improve Raging Blow on the right. We will come back to that section in a bit as well.
Sure.
As far as the left is concerned, you'll go Focus and Chaos, and then that's that's the left side done.
And I really think that's because of the single-minded Fury emphasis. I feel like if single-minded Fury was not what they wanted it to be, the left side of this tree would just be more interesting for the whole spec.
Yeah, there's also a significant amount of Raging Blow focus when it comes to the right side, and all of it is just so much stronger than the Bloodthirst stuff on the left. Like, that could even be, if they were to remove single-minded Fury, that could be the distinction between the two sides, a Bloodthirst build and an RB build, and it would make sense as well. We'll take Rampage and all 3 talents below it, plus Recklessness.
Got it.
Improve Whirlwind, both points in Cruelty, and Wrath and Fury just below it. And then I still go Siegebreaker and Deafening Crash, though I've seen a lot of people trying to drop it recently, but I still think that these are very good. That's just a pure damage amp on a decent CD, decent duration. It's almost a 50% uptime. It's really good. And then after that, we're going to the bottom with Swift Strikes with 2 points, and Critical Thinking with 2 points. And then I think you go Ravager with Gathering Storm, Onslaught with Pulverize, and Reckless Abandon as well. And then the choice is kind of either you could go Sudden Death if you wanted to, but I don't think it's necessary, or you can go Unbridled Ferocity. Sudden Death is in the top part of the tree.
Oh, okay, so Sudden Death up here.
Execute. Yeah.
I think that's a failure on the
Ferocity.
capstone nodes. So the fact that you didn't feel like that this was required near the top, and then the fact that you're getting to the very last node you're thinking of, notably every single one of them is an old Legion artifact thing, or 3 capstone levels under Reckless Abandon, and you're considering those with the power level of something in the first potential 8 points of your tree. That makes me think that these capstone nodes are not enticing or powerful enough. Or this is too powerful, one of the two.
I think it's just the ones at the bottom I don't think are powerful enough. Skull Banner, as we discussed last time, is pretty bad, in all honesty, I think. I think it's incredibly situational. Sidearm is very much about cleave more than it is single target. I don't see you using that in a raid too much. Unbridled Ferocity is okay. It's just, after having the current tier set and having like so much recklessness uptime, this now feels incredibly lackluster by comparison, but historically, we've seen that random rec procs help make Fury feel good, especially if it procs things like Reckless Abandon, for example. Depths of Insanity is okay, but I don't think it's necessary. Certainly not with Memory of the Tormented Berserker, and with having extra rec up time when you press Avatar anyway.
Hell yeah. And then this is, does anything majorly change in like a huge cleave situation? Do you still not consider things like Odin's Fury? I know that a lot of the stuff under it is not yet implemented, so it's super hard to tell.
Yeah, you definitely consider Odin's Fury. I think you come out of Onslaught and Pulverize at that point, and then go into Odin's Fury, and I'm assuming whatever the not yet implemented
they have
talents
2
would be.
not yet implemented choice nodes under it. There's just an extreme high likelihood that if you were ever going to take Odin's Fury, you would likely also take one of those. So, yeah.
You would also probably come out of Siegebreaker and Deafening Crash and either go into Meat Cleaver or 1 point in Meat Cleaver, 1 point in Fresh Meat, something like that.
Okay. All right, cool. So not super complicated. Just to kind of, if you want to have some time to kind of speak about the current state of Fury, again, there's still a lot of things up in the air, not yet implemented placeholder under Thunderous Roar, under Odin's Fury. How do you feel like this spec is playing right now in the Dragonflight Alpha with the way that things are currently? What still needs major tuning? What feels wrong? What feels right? All that stuff.
I'll be honest, I don't think a whole lot feels wrong. I think there's definitely a problem with the tree when nothing on the left is being considered at all. We're considering it's stopping at Focusing Chaos, and
that's weird.
Everything below that just doesn't look promising. I mean, I get that the middle section is completely overloaded with stuff that is just good, but yeah, I don't know. I don't think much is particularly wrong with the tree right now outside of that. But I don't know how you make the left side more attractive without just raw buffing some of these talents. I mean, some of these talents play a little bit better into AoE, for example, because you can obviously Bloodthirst with a little bit more regularity than you can Raging Blow, at least in AoE, because you want to be using fresh meat to keep your own rage up anyway. I do think that on the very right side, I think there's a little bit of a failure there as well. Just below Meat Cleaver, you have Raging Armaments, which I think is pretty poorly placed and a little bit of a waste anyway. I don't think you need that third charge of Raging Blow. Or if they're determined for us to have it, you should put it in with Wrath and Fury 2 spots to the left of it. Because at the moment, Wrath and Fury is very plain for its spot in the tree.
Oh, yeah, I didn't even read that.
To be that close.
Oh, yeah.
To be that close to the capstone area and
that
only
is,
be 5%
that
RB
is
damage
fucking
is
bad.
disgusting.
Yeah.
So I'd like to see Raging Armaments maybe baked in with Wrath and Fury, and then in place of Raging Armaments, put something that links with Whirlwind, like, let's say, Wrecking Ball, for example, which was basically like a Dance of Chi-Ji proc, but with Whirlwind instead, and not quite as overpowered. But it was fun, because it's just another proc to play around, and procs are good, procs are cool.
I don't think anyone has an issue with Dance of Chi-Ji not being fun. It's just that it's too powerful of something that's so RNG. Yeah. That's usually the main complaint. In fact, play Windwalker without Chi-Ji, and if you ignore the fact that it's doing a lot more damage, it is significantly less fun rotationally in AoE. So, what about the Fury class tree? We kind of moved on. We are going to touch on some things with arms, but for some things you might think not get touched on class tree wise. Like we did a lot of talk about the capstone, but you know, it seems like maybe a couple of these points, we talked about a few utility points, so it's not completely out of the way. We talked about needing to slam a lot of those earlier points. So we ended up just throwing them in barbaric training, but you're saying like that's pretty forgettable. So if you needed to run Intimidating Shout, Cacophonous, or if you needed to grab Berserker Rage, Berserker Shout, or if you needed to grab Defensive Stance and Intervene, if you needed any of this stuff, it's attainable without losing a ton of throughput, which is the goal.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
Do you feel like that it's good enough?
Yeah, I think so. Even better than that, like given the placement and the trade-off, or the trade-off cost for taking Intimidating Shout, I think you would probably take Menace with it. So if we're thinking like an M+ scenario, I get Intimidating Shout is capped on its AoE CC, but it's so much more obtainable and so much less of a cost than trying to take Shockwave, and it's still capped to 6 targets, your target and 5 more.
Yeah,
I'll be honest, not very many pulls in M+, unless you're like doing MDI, go that high above those pulls when you're doing live keys. I think that's still fine. It's a long cooldown, but Menace also reduces the threat of the mobs just running off and chaining more packs as well. So I think that if you needed the CC, then you're more likely to go into Intimidating Shout and Menace anyway than to even remotely try and get Shockwave.
Oh yeah, it's those two things are like different worlds. It's literally the difference between an absolutely free point versus something where you lose a ton of damage. It's two different universes. Something they did too is initially they gave everyone Rend and everyone Blood and Thunder. Now I think it's a little uninteresting for Fury at least to consider the Thunderclap and then the Thunderclap choice node, like Crackling Thunder, whatever. But like, I don't know. It just seems this seems underrealized and something you might not ever play the whole expansion.
Yeah, I think a way you could get away with it. I mean, anytime that you're spending rage on something that isn't Rampage as Fury, then I think Blizzard view it as a design failure, and I tend to agree. It just feels awkward. But if they really wanted to make these actually interesting for Fury, then just make them work with Cold Steel, Hot Blood. So you can have, Whirlwind, Bloodthirst, and get a few Cold Steels going, and then if you have some excess rage, slam a Thunderclap down and spread that even further.
Let's move on to arms. The only other thing I want to point out is Concussive Blow. I still feel like this is weird. They added a bunch of different like pummel integrations to make. I think with the combination of honed reflexes and pummel, you're going to be able to kick most things that were previously only kickable by Wind Shear. And now I think Frosty K's have that with their talent. I don't know how many other melee actually have that ability, but they added it to a few of them. I also I think if you're thinking about the damage you get for interrupting on a boss, I want to say the damage element of Concussive Blows is probably better than almost every other damage increase you get in the game. Like if you're actually truly kicking on cooldown, it's like something like a 3.5 to 4% like permanent damage increase, even though that's not realistically how that ever works. But I mean, that can kind of feel like a nice buff on a kick fight. Do you guys like the power level of this?
Yeah, it was made a lot better when they removed, because it initially had, so its original iteration was it was crit chance when you kicked, and it had a 30-second cooldown lockout for some reason. But they completely did away with the lockout, as you can see, and the fact that it's just raw damage now, yeah, I think it's
And
it's incredibly good now.
lasts almost the full duration of your kick cooldown. Also, someone in chat
Yeah,
said it
it's
used to be
great.
10%. Dude, it needed to be. It could not have been 10%. Having a 10% damage increase, like almost permanently on a permanent kick fight, like that is that's way better than everyone else's variant of that. So.
Yeah, I certainly don't remember it being 10%, but yeah, that would have been a bit too nutty, I think.
Yeah, it was 5% when we had the glyph back in whenever it was. Maybe it was Wrath.
Okay, let's move on to arms. That was really quick, concise, and I think got the point across. We'll do the exact same thing for arms. Obviously,
Yeah.
everyone can contribute. Go ahead.
Yeah, can I point out there's Sudden Death and Massacre, right? They've swapped the opposite places. Massacre is there for Fury, and Sudden Death is at the top right for Fury on the Fury tree.
Oh, so sudden. Wait, let me see.
I was gonna
okay.
point that out when you were talking about the way that they've changed the class tree between the specs. For some reason, they decided to change where Massacre and Sudden Death are between Arms and Fury, for what I can seemingly see as no reason.
Wait, so
Doesn't
Sudden
make
Death
sense.
is in the spec tree for Fury, and then Massacre's on the class tree for Arms.
Yeah, and
then for Arms, it's the exact. Wait, where's Massacre? Massacre's down here, and then you guys have Sudden. Wow, what? Do you think that was maybe an accident?
Really make sense. I don't know.
It's too
I don't
specific
know how you do that I don't know how you do that by accident. It's a bit of a weird one. But I mean, it's not like it affects anything, because you have fairly easy access to both for both specs either way. But by the same token, because it doesn't really matter, why do it?
Dude, that's so weird. I wonder if maybe the hidden thing is maybe somehow Prot is involved with this as well. Do they have either variant of this on their shield spec, fueled by violence? Maybe it's because they wanted to remove one or both of those things from Prot.
Maybe they didn't want.
Oh, Massacre. So
Massacre's still there.
Massacre was always a choice node here with Enduring Defense.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And then...
And Sudden Death is exactly where it is for Arms.
Who fucking knows? Weird. All right, Arms Warrior Gang. Again, not a specific build, not like specifically Raid Mythic Plus, just like make a build for like that you're going to play most of the time and stuff. And then if you want... If there's obvious, like, in a mass AoE situation, you would take this, or in a pure single target situation, you can say that. You can make those points.
Mm-hmm. Let's just do like a general raid build, I think. So do the stance and rally.
Okay.
And
interesting that Prot immediately goes, or Arms immediately goes for D-stance instead of Fury. I think that's kind of significant. That still the defensive capabilities of both of those specs is very different.
Mm-hmm. And you only move on the left side to take. You can take either Impending or the choice node here, right?
Kind of, unless because are you going to take Spell Reflect?
Yeah.
Okay, if you're taking Spell Reflect, then the choice node is just purely choice.
Yeah, and you don't actually need to take Spell Effect. If you just remove the Spell Effect, remove Impending, take Inspiring Presence, I guess.
Sure.
Take Honed Reflexes on the left there. Remove that one. And then you want to go down the right side as well, right? So take Berserker Rage and War Machine, and then Furious Blows, and take Heroic Leap, I guess.
Now you have 1 point. Okay, and we talked about how at least with Fury you were able to come back up here and get utility. We'll see if that's the same for Arms when we get down to the 20 point mark.
Mm-hmm. And then on the left you have 2 points in Crushing Blows. Actually makes our filler quite strong outside of Execute. Kind of nice.
Yep.
And then take Frothing Berserker and Armor to the Teeth. And then to reach the middle, we can take Bounding Stride and Double Time.
Okay.
We have 4 spare points, right?
You have 6 spare points, unless I missed
6
something.
spare points.
Yep.
Oh yeah, sorry, I'm missing something. You would take Pain and Gain probably.
And then Sudden Death.
Sudden Death, yeah.
Sure.
Now we have 4 spare points.
Yeah, now you have 4 spare points. Kind of the same thing as Arms, except Arms or Fury. Fury had 5, but I think that's just because they didn't have to take Crushing Force, and they were able to save the talent point by going Wrecking Throw. So this is, again, kind of same thing. You can just, if you need Spell Reflect on a fight, or Intimidating Shout, or that plus Berserker Shout, if you want the Thunderclap Ren situation, you could grab CC plus Thunderclap Blood and Thunder. Like, you could... There's a lot of stuff you can do at those points. You're kind of doing okay.
Yeah, or you can have more headroom on the rage with overwhelming power. Overwhelming rage? Yeah.
I actually really like this.
You could take Barbaric Training.
Yes,
Barbaric Training.
Barbaric Training is a little bit more necessary for Arms, because it's a bit different to the Fury version. It's just significantly more damage on your filler.
it definitely makes the DPR much higher. So yeah, you would take
Sure.
that.
And then I think okay, that's great. And then they have so then now realistically it's like 3 points, and it's if you need defensiveness plus offensive, you can get it. This actually I think is the best part of the warrior tree so far is that they allow you to actually have free roam of your talents with everything you need before hitting the point where you're most likely spending every single one of your points down at the bottom. I think that's something they do really well. Let's just take Spell Reflect in most situations, intervene super situational. You could slam 2 for the leech on like something fight specific, but let's just take Blood and Thunder and Thunderclap. Just say there's like randomly cleave or something.
So we do probably want Avatar and the memory, the recklessness one. So that's Warlord. Oh no, sorry, not recklessness, but yeah. Oh yeah, it is. Sorry. And then naturally we take the 200 spec. And since we picked the Warlord, we do want Thunderous Roar. So take Thunderous Roar on the right.
And then we don't know what this capstone thing is.
Yeah.
But just take this one, I guess, for now.
Yeah. And then you can take 2 in that Cruel Strikes thing. And that's it.
Or
so
2 in
question.
The other thing is also you could do a 1 in endurance just for the 1 point of 10% stam, right? I feel like that for arms especially, that is like I think you take that for sure. Like you're basically saying what's better, an extra 2.5% crit strike damage on specifically overpower or 10% health. Like that's no brainer.
Makes the choice even easier. The overpower does like no damage at the moment.
Yeah, doesn't do much now.
Okay, so this is what do you think about this?
I'm happy with it, and it's just I mean my main issue is just Shockwave, but if we can't have it, we can't have it. I guess that's the stance they've taken.
Yeah, so far, I think everyone is in strong agreement that the Shockwave shit is a problem. It needs to be somewhere else than there.
Yeah. And they still haven't done anything to spear the visual. We've been complaining about that for a while.
Another quick question. So let's just assume Blizzard comes to their senses and puts Shockwave not on the capstone level. What do you think? Dude, even like if it was like 1 point under sudden death or 1 point under armor to the teeth and it didn't have any capstones and it was just available to be gotten with 1 point, I think it's a problem in the capstone level, but the fact that it's a 3 point commitment minimum is also just like completely dead. Like if it was just a 1 pointer, it could be potentially used. But let's just say they take this away. Look at the other 3 things that remain in its position. Avatar, Spear of Bastion, Thunderous Roar. What is something they can put in the class tree that would be interesting to all 3 specs? And something from the past that you guys would think would be good? Kind of putting you on the spot.
It's a good question. I don't know. Dan, any ideas?
Focused Rage. It'd be good to have that back, but it's Focused Rage was it was an off global cooldown sort of buff to your next Mortal Strike, but they hate that type of gameplay. But it would be strong enough for capstone level, in all honesty. But yeah, Blizzard don't like regular off-global gameplay for DPS, so we're probably not going to get that. Outside of that, I don't know. ARMS hasn't really had much in the way of like big cooldowns. Maybe you could try and make an argument for Bloodbath, because obviously it's in the class tree, so you would be looking at something that all 3 specs might want. And old Bloodbath was quite good. It was a 1 minute cooldown that applied a bleed based on the damage that you dealt. It was a portion of the damage you dealt. And that was really fun. It was nice, but
I was thinking Memory of Lucid Dreams, but refocused for Warriors.
Lucid would be good.
That'd be cool.
I feel like Fury with Lucid and Wreck potentially would be more or less chaining back to back rampages.
Dude, I think it's insane for all. I think it's insane for all 3 specs. Like Prot Warrior Lucid was fucking cracked.
It was so fun.
Arms and Execute, like Test of Might Lucid with Lust was like fucking insane. Like, I don't know. That, or I guess another idea would be you could cherry pick something for each individual spec by moving Anger Management into this spot like every other tree has. And then every spec where Anger Management is, you could add something else to where you could potentially, like at Fury's tree, for example, you could stack Anger Management and Reckless Abandon, right? Or like something like that. Like it would give some options, but I think some warriors would kind of fear that because they like playing with Anger Management so much that putting it in the class tree might mean you won't take it. So there's always that. But okay,
it is a difficult one, but I like the Lucid Dreams idea. Although I did have there was a talent in the arms tree a while ago called Deadly Calm, which has just historically never been taken, that they removed. And they said they were going to iterate on it and then add it back in. There's no sign of that so far. There's not even so much as a hint as to where they could potentially put it. But I did originally think that they might put Lucid Dreams into that, because I think specifically for arms, that ability, what were they called? That power was cracked beyond belief. But
Yeah.
there's literally no sign of them adding it back anytime soon, which is a shame.
Let's move on to the spec tree. Last time I don't think this one's changed that much visually since the last time that I looked at it. It seems like it's almost all exactly the same. I'm sure like some buttons changed and maybe positions changed, but the pathing looks identical.
Yeah, it's similar. Impale costs 1 point now. You know, the one on the left there, kind of early on the left. One down. That's it. That one was a 2-pointer, and that's actually opened up some more options for us.
Okay, cool.
But yeah, you can go down. Yeah, so you would take those. Yep. Now,
Okay.
improved overpower and improved mortal strike, they're actually quite weak, especially overpower. You wouldn't. I don't think you would ever take improved overpower.
Oh yeah. Oh, this is the same thing as before. This is except I think that used to be like fueled for violence or something, but like there was like improved overpower was so weak that you would never consider it, and then the only other option was like fueled for violence, and I was like, why is this here? But now I guess they've made it a little bit of a rage gen with blood surge as an alternative.
Yeah. So we do want to get down the middle. So you take Field for Violence or Stormwall. I think Stormwall is kind of cool though. Like Stormwall is cool, but I don't see any situation where we'd actually use it for PvE. Maybe it's a PvP thing.
Most of the
Accepted,
time,
Max. It's time for Fueled by Violence.
yeah, we can talk about fueled by violence in a second, but I just the thing with Stormwall is most of the time when I've had these conversations, I have learned that when someone goes, who knows, it's not good, maybe it's a PvP thing, I can tell you without fail that every single time someone says that, some PvPers pop up in chat, like just some like lurking verified PvP streamers and gamers, and every single time they're just like, nope, that's dog shit in PvP too. So I don't know if it would actually be good or not, but yeah.
I mean, it would be so easy to play around. Like you start by the sword, use your
just
stop
don't
attacking
attack.
that way. Yeah.
Yeah.
That right there, that's a leveling thing. That is.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Fueled by Violence will heal you, will keep you alive much better than.
So I'm
the other one,
surprised
yeah.
this is still in the tree. Did they keep this in for all 3 warrior specs in their tree somewhere? Because I know it was initially in all of them, right? Like Prot, it was. Is that little guy in here? Oh yeah, but it's a choice node. Yeah, that is truly rough. Do you guys have any other takes on this other than it makes no sense and it should be gone?
Not really. I mean, some defensive is nice, I guess. The healing isn't bad right now.
How much
So
is
it's
it?
nice to have some.
You can make the argument it's better than nothing, but
Yeah.
each individual tick of deep wounds doesn't do a whole lot. On pure single target with no constant cleave, it's not going to do a great deal. But when it comes to AoE, it's going to be really good for Mythic Plus when you're playing with cleave, because you have a lot of deep wounds up all the time, apart from when you're fighting bosses. And
Okay.
again, as Crit says, because you want to go down the middle, Stormwall is just useless.
Yeah, I guess the issue there is that basically when nodes are like this, where they come from the same node and they end in another node, this is effectively a choice node. They're 2 separate things, but they could just be a choice node. There's 0 difference other than you can potentially select both, which you would never do.
Yeah.
So you would need to have them at least kind of be useful in different situations. And Fueled for Violence seems like it has use in a multi-target scenario, and Stormwall has use never. So maybe something on the other side would be, Fueled for Violence, but it just does a significantly more amount of healing when you're hitting only 1 target or something like that. I don't know. All right. Moving on, we have to pick Improved Mortal Strike to Path, I assume.
No, I think I would skip it actually. Just
Okay.
skip it. So take Improved Execute. You take Fueled for Violence, by Violence. Then you take probably Exploit the Weakness, down there, over the Execute above 80%, because having more overpower procs, this thing increases overpower procs by so much. It's kind of insane.
But overpower stinks. But yeah, okay, I see.
But it is a free filler, and we
You
kind
kinda
of
need those.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you go down Impale on the left, actually. Yeah. Take Friend. Take Dreadnought. You probably go on the right now. Just take the
Okay.
important things there. So Colossus Smash, Test of Might or in for the kill. That depends on tuning really. Both of them kind of do the same thing. You get Test of Might.
I'm gonna pick Test of Might, and I'm hoping they're
Mhm.
just making it better than it is right now. I think Test of Might's really fun.
God bless.
Yeah. Take Anger Management. Take Massacre. You want to move all the way down to the bottom from there later. We can skip Sweeping Strikes if it's just single target.
Mm-hmm.
So let's keep moving down the left then. So like if we were building like a bleed build, because what we did on the left side before, the class tree, we picked Thunderous Words on the bottom right, and that increases the damage of all bleeds as well, by 20%.
Okay.
So it's quite impactful. So
Wow.
you take
Yeah, I didn't even realize that. Okay, sick.
So you take Bloodborne, and you need to use my points now. So take Skull Splitter.
I think, and just for people wondering, he is like kind of thinking pure single right now. I think in almost all scenarios where you're playing Arms Warrior, you're specking Sweeping Strikes and
Pretty much, yeah.
and one of these things under it. So, but for now we'll do this. It's Skull Splitter and then potentially, let's see.
Yeah, Exhilarating Blows probably, yeah. And then you move all the way down to the bottom of the right. Takes Cruel Strike. No, Critical Drinking. That's the one. Exploiter and Juggernaut. And then you go all the way down the left as well.
Okay.
You can actually take both of these. Both of them are pretty good.
Let's do it. And then Fatality.
Yeah. And what does that leave us with? 1 point, right?
It does leave you with 1 point, and that 1 point will give you 1.5 verse and
or
15
Fracture.
seconds or Fracture. Yeah.
Or Sweeping Strikes, I guess.
And it kind of makes sense that you might want to ignore like this middle part of the tree in like a pure single target situation. Although I still think it doesn't quite work. There are scenarios where you would want to play blunt instruments or sharpened blades if they were tuned a little bit better, but the idea of them, right? Without taking Bladestorm. So why are they behind Bladestorm? Like Unhinged and Gathering Storm makes sense to be behind Bladestorm. Merciless Bone Grinder and Dance of Death obviously makes sense to be behind Bladestorm. This thing seems 100% out of place. And especially if they lowered the power level on both of them by removing the weapon requirements, maybe it's something that could also just be higher in the tree. Like this
they
isn't...
did mention
Go ahead.
they want to add more stuff to the middle of the tree. Where Sweeping Strikes is, I believe, is what they're hinting at.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense. The left and right are like meaty and there's like 7 options. Then the middle just like runs it down mid with 0 anything. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, if you weren't taking Fracture, actually, I think improved Mortal Strike would have been better than Skull Splitter. So.
Got it. Okay, and then I wonder, so does this second point here, I want to read these. So this one makes Ren's initial damage gets increased on the second point. This second point is another 15 seconds on Die by the Sword, making it a 1.5 minute cooldown with both of these points. Kind of interesting. And then this one makes it 2% increased, 2.5 increased crit damage on Execute. Okay, again, a little more interesting than normal, but yeah, nothing to look at there. Okay, so this is, and then obviously to change this around for raid, you'd probably move around and fuck around a little bit by removing like Exhilarating Blows, probably grab Sweeping Strikes, and then still probably run most of this shit.
Yeah, you could, I think if you want more AoE, you would skip the bottom left ones, I think. And you would start taking the Bladestorm parts.
Okay.
Yeah. I really enjoy the what's it called? Gathering Storm. That's to the right of Bladestorm.
Yeah. Right here, right?
Oh yeah, to the left of Bladestorm. Sorry. Yeah.
Can we just point out how much people in WoW overreact to stuff? Evokers first come out and they're like, oh my god, 4 Evokers, 1 in every party because of Zephyr. And then Arms Warriors come out and they're like, wait, Skull Banner, you're only going to ever play Arms. And then like you just read the potential and then you just notice that like it's just being skipped in a lot of scenarios. It may still end up being played. Let's just say in this scenario, you slam this stuff on the left in a raid build, single target, ignore Sweeping Strikes, throw it somewhere else. And then you're just sitting here with the 1 point at the end. And you're like, what's better, 1%, 1.5% verse, or the 4 best classes plus me in my raid benefiting from Skull Banner in the pool? It might be Skull Banner, right? It's just the power level is nowhere near being required or stacked. So
I have one major issue with Skull Banner in that why is it both limited to your party and within 20 yards?
No, true.
What is the purpose of that? If we're meant to be buffing 4 fire mages and they are 40 yards away from the boss, Are you telling me that I have to leap out, drop the skull banner on them, and
Yeah,
then
of
come
course,
back to the
dude.
boss?
Yeah, rally your
Like,
troops, then
what
go
is
back in.
what is this?
What
What
was
is
the mob
this?
version of it? Was it 40 yards all?
Yeah,
Entire raid.
it was raid wide as well, though.
Yeah, yeah. The range
Um,
was definitely higher than 20 yards, right?
But I don't think it makes sense to limit it both. If it's going to be party members, make it 40 yards. It shouldn't. I don't think an ability should force you to disengage from the boss. I don't think that's a good play style at all. Or
no.
just make it not party members and have it be like Conqueror's Banner now, closest people to you, all that good stuff.
How's this gonna feel for arms? What does the playstyle feel from last expansion to upcoming in Dragonflight, assuming the trees stay largely like this?
I think it feels really nice to play this. Like the rage is kind of on point now that they've nerfed some of the rage gen. Execute maybe feels a little bit starved, but it's fine. Execute is supposed to be kind of expensive, but you don't really miss any globals outside of execute, which is great. You do keep rend up, and you get to use Colossus Smash quite often because of anger management, right? And I don't know, I really like it. It's an improvement on current arms, and it brings back some of the old stuff as well. I understand why they're saying that they're mostly happy with our arms is designed right now. I would agree.
Okay, so warriors are happy. I think before, I forget what I rated the like warrior classes and specs in a tier list because they've changed so much, just like arbitrarily randomly ranking them. I think you would just say the warrior trees have definitely gotten better since their release.
For sure.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. They're a lot cleaner across the board.
If it went live today, would you be happy with it, or do you still think it needs a decent amount of changes?
Other than the small issue of single-minded fury for fury and the placement of sharpened blades and blunt instruments for arms, yeah, I'd be pretty happy with that.
Yeah, the
outside of those
placement
two
and the
things.
potential power level of them. Dude, I'm honestly,
exactly.
I've been thinking about this for 10 minutes. I really think Lucid Dreams and the capstone level of the class tree is fucking sick. I think
since you brought it up, I haven't been able to get it out of my head.
Yeah, that sounds very, very, very good. So shout out to that dude in chat that said that. Yeah,
It just sounds so fun.
yeah, it's just if you just think about the gameplay, man, it's also potentially like extremely powerful. Like it might not be able to be as good, but man, would that be a competitive option?
Yeah.
All right. So I think that's basically it. Do you guys have any last words on Warrior? This was nice and quick and very informative. You guys were very, very good.
Nothing major. Nope. Just remove single-minded fury, please.
Bless up. All right. Thanks for talking, men.
Cheers,
All right.
bud.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
All right.
see ya.
See ya.
Dude, I think that was the most concise. That needs to be the absolute bar for what this is. Like, we just went over this many changes, by the way. Let me pull it up. I'm just going to scroll down. The last time we talked, this is what was here. All right, now I'm going to scroll. And I'm still scrolling. And I'm still scrolling. And I'm done scrolling. Okay. We covered all of this, basically, and, like, kind of redid the thing in a very short amount of time. That was really, really, really good. Dan and Critcake are both very, very good at this. Right to the point. Concise is the keyword. Hell yeah.